Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of On with Alumni. This episode, we have with us Pratyusha Sharma, who is a PhD student at MIT, focused in computer science and artificial intelligence. She did her undergraduate from production and industrial engineering from IIT Delhi, and then she moved to Japan for a job. She worked there for good 6 months, and then she moved to CMU to pursue her research there, and then she moved to MIT. So the journey sounds quite amazing and interesting. So we'll get to know more about her journey, her experiences in this video, and this video will really prove helpful for people who wish to pursue research because there are some great insights that Patricia will share in this video. So without any further ado, let's get started. So let me welcome Pratyusha. So hi Pratyusha, welcome to Honor with Alumni.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. I think we should start with the very first question then. So uh, let me just start by asking you about what is the experience at MIT been. I mean, MIT is the uh, dream of many students. So how has the experience been there, and what are you working on?
Yes, yeah, sure. So the experience at MIT and like graduate school has been really great so far. Like I just finished my first year in the program here, and it was really fun, like to be working in a building with so many other different research labs working on like very diverse problems and all at the cutting edge. And in my first year, I've been working on two different research questions. So the first question was on like whether it's possible, given just the footprints of a person, if it's possible to predict the person's full body pose. So given just like their tactile footprints over time, can we predict how they're leaning, what kind of an exercise they're doing, and actually predict the joints of the joint angles of their different body of their body. And the second problem which I've been working on, and it's also one of my favorite problems, is on trying to see if we can decode the language of whales. And what we're really trying to do here is we're looking at a large data set of whale vocalizations and are trying to find out what may be the smallest units and the underlying rules or grammar of their communication. And yeah, like one way to think about this is like the way I think my professor also introduces this project sometimes is by saying that, you know, this is a project we're doing, so we're prepared when the aliens come. But but I think besides
There
that,
actually there actually is a movie called Arrival. You must have heard of it,
yes,
where they actually try to decode the language of aliens. So I think that's
yes,
a quite good reference.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. It's yeah, it's very similar, I think, in idea. But I think the idea behind this is to see, like, really understand, maybe not extraterrestrial, but like on Earth, like what what might be the underlying rules or the smallest units by which different animals communicate with one another and the complexity of their communication, which also will give us an insight into their intelligence. Because like one thing that really sets the human race apart from other animals is also like our ability to be able to create and compose our responses and share our knowledge and our strategies.
Yeah, yeah, that sure sounds interesting. Uh, let's take a step back and when you were at CMU, you were working with robots and you were literally helping them how learn things, like picking up things and certain other things. So I think you would be a better person to explain that. So can you talk about that?
Yes, yeah, sure. So before starting my PhD, I did a one-year research assistantship at CMU with Professor Abhinav Gupta, and I think I was very lucky to get the chance to be able to work in his lab. And so at CMU, I was working on problems in robot learning, which is a field at the intersection of robotics and machine learning. And maybe one of the projects that I could talk about, one of the projects that I was doing there. And the last project that I was working on was on this task of third person imitation learning, where what we try to do is, given just a human video of a person performing a task, we teach the robot to learn the intent of the human from that single video and then translate that intent into its own context and then perform the task. So like the question really was that if we can specify what we want the robot to do by just performing a single demonstration. And just to put this in context, like if you have a robot at home and it has been trained to make tea using a lot of previous demonstrations, but now you want it to make coffee or make tea with a new kind of mug, we wouldn't want to train the robot again using lots of data to do that one task.
Yeah.
So like in some sense, it's what we really wanted was a way for the robot to use its knowledge from all its previous interactions to effectively perform a new task.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Since we're going a step backward every time, so the next question is again takes you a step backward. So while you were at IIT, you were working with Professor Saha, and you were working on interactive holograms and projectors, and we've heard of those things mostly in sci-fi movies. And the other thing that you were talking about, those also seem like they're coming from a sci-fi movie, the references, right? So what was that experience like? I mean, did you ever think that you'd be working on those things?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I never thought I would be working on those things, but yes, I think I've always really been a technology enthusiast, and yeah, I think it's been a very I think I was very lucky to be able to work on some of those things, and so yes, I was working in the autonomous robotics lab at IIT Delhi, starting my second year summer, and my advisor was Professor Saha. And my first project with Professor Saha was on this project that was called Sakshar. And the main idea behind that was to be able to build a low-cost, projectable, interactive surface that could be used as an alternative to large, expensive touch screens that are used in smart classrooms. And this was mostly like the main idea was to be able to bring this to schools in developing countries, or in schools where they might not be able to afford really expensive smart classrooms, the costs of which go upwards of 1 lakh rupees. So so what we really tried to do was use a projector to render images or buttons on any surface, like any ordinary flat surface, and then try to use cameras to model the user's interaction with the surface. And in response to how the user interacts, the camera tries to analyze the person's motion and then changes what the projector renders on the screen, on the normal flat surface. So in some sense, it was to be able to convert any flat, normal, ordinary surface into a touch screen. And like there were many other benefits, like it could be resizable, and it is also not fragile, unlike like large screens which are hard to transport and can also easily break. So it was a very big learning experience for me, and I think I feel very lucky about the opportunity. And yes.
Sounds very interesting. Okay, so the next question is a very generic question. Uh, so, uh, what does research in ML, maybe AI, robotics? There are so many terms: computer vision, natural language processing. So, how does the research look like? I mean, how do you start with an idea? How do you pursue it further? What is the process like?
Yes. Yeah. So, how should I put this? So maybe across these different fields, what one really is trying to do is extract knowledge or information from data, and then try to use this extracted knowledge or information or representations to be able to make decisions. And I think across all the fields that you named, like robotics, vision, natural language processing, I think so the source of the data is different. Like in vision, it has images and videos. In robotics, it's interactions. And in NLP, it's textual data. And if somebody's working on sounds, on speech, then it's sounds. So what people really are doing is working on models that extract the best representation, or you could be working on building models that can then like reason over data of the same kind to make different decisions or perform very specific tasks. And and I think you mentioned AI, and AI really could be thought of as an umbrella term, discussing research across all of these fields, but it also has research from a lot of other fields too. So it's not really limited to these fields alone, and people there are also other questions like how could you help build a human-like agent, or a good model of human-like cognition, or uh, a, a, or like, systems that can continually learn from experience, or probe the environment to understand different phenomena which may be causally related, um, or agents that can ask questions or build hypotheses and like test them as they explore the environment. And but besides building like these kind of agents, there's also a lot of other work uh, on building AI systems, which we see around us. Like there's a lot of work in neural machine translation, and there's work on vacuum cleaning robots, which I think now can also make a map of your house and explore your house in a much more efficient way. And then there's other things which you may not really be like, there's things like recommendation systems, and like Google Lens, which you could take a picture of something and it'll tell you what it is. And I think ultimately there's so much of data that's uploaded every day, and there's a lot of work that's going on trying to develop means to extract information or knowledge out of that large data.
So, Pratyusha talked about all these fields. So let me just take you slightly off topic. So all these fields, AI, ML, robotics, and engineering in general. I mean, it's sort of a very male-dominated area, right? And we all know of the gender ratio, very skewed gender ratio in engineering colleges as well. So were there any struggles that you faced, and what do you have to say about uh, the whole scene in general? I mean, is it changing? Is it evolving? What do you have to say?
Yeah, so I think that's a very good question, and there's definitely like, maybe I can speak about my experience. So
Yeah, sure.
so the reason I chose engineering was because I loved math, and I really did not decide whether I should do engineering or not based on how many girls there would be or how many boys there would be. And I really hope all the girls one day in India and also around the rest of the world like are allowed to choose for themselves, rather than being rather than having to make a decision dictated by lots of external forces. Um, and I think like in the Indian context, unfortunately, like in some parts of the country, girls are not allowed to go to school beyond class 10, or even in the case where young girls are allowed to study further, a lot of the elements or system in the system and the traditions kind of work against young girls when they may be at critical stages of making decisions. And I think a lot of STEM fields really try to teach one to question phenomenon around us and think independently and take calculated risks. But like at several stages, I think these very traditions and culture in like the Indian context and also I think in several other parts of the world, uh, like may sometimes play against the women, like against women in trying to inculcate these very habits. And it can start off at a very early age. And like every decision that I think a lot of times uh, girls may have to make, like there's always like an element of compromise sometimes, which I
Yeah,
don't think, yeah. So, and like you mentioned, another thing is the absence of role models. Like you mentioned how uh, about there not being that many female professors.
yeah,
Yes, I
yeah.
think that's definitely there. And like I think besides that, like yes, I think all of these issues are definitely there. And I
And do you
think
think that's changing?
yes, I think it's definitely changing. I think the more people like start talking about it, I think uh, like the more evident it is to more and more people, and the more evident it is to more and more people, the more they'll factor in those questions when they make decisions. And also, I think uh, it also creates a general awareness and people would then be more sensitive to what one like what kind of a background one might come from, how difficult their lives might be. So I think like my advice or in general, I think the way uh, what like one thing I think maybe girls could do for themselves is really talk about these things like in the hostel. Like I don't think we ever really when I was in college, I don't think we ever had any discussion about like what might be the issues that like people might be facing. And well, yes, I think people like when you talk to your friends, you do find out what kind of issues they face, but sometimes not everybody really brings up those conversations in their everyday friendly conversations. So maybe like if the so just starting a conversation, because just letting like just because knowing that even other people might be going through similar issues can really help you face them with more confidence. And I think like secondly, girls should like stand out for one another, because there's already enough of factors like in the society that might be trying to pull them down, but really standing up for one another is like can yeah, encourage more girls to like be uh, more like more actively take part in like leadership roles or do things that they otherwise thought they couldn't do.
Yeah, we do see that there's a change that is coming. I mean, IIT also right now it has a gender sensitization club, so to say, not club, but there's a body that governs these things. I think people are becoming more and more gender sensitive, and we hope that it really gets better.
That's very
Okay,
nice
the
to
next
hear.
question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. So the next question. So while you were, starting out to get into an IIT or maybe a graduation college, maybe. So were there any conflicts that you faced? I mean, were there any decisions that you had to make between IIT Delhi and any other college?
Yes. So actually, when I was trying to decide between the college that I should go to for my undergraduate studies, I was uh, I was confused if I wanted to do engineering or do science, because like I think when we join college, every at least most of us do math, physics, chemistry, and maybe computer science, but maybe just a language. So we don't really know what the different disciplines of engineering might really be about, and we're
The perspective is very limited.
yes, that's right. And like we have to declare our or choose a major even before we come in. So I do not really know like if I wanted to do science or if I wanted to do engineering, because I really liked like what, at least from what I knew back then, I thought like doing science means you become a scientist, or like I really liked math and I really liked biology and also physics. So yeah, I was really confused if I should go to Indian Institute of Science or if I should go to IIT Delhi. But I think like one reason that I factored in when I made that decision was that the undergraduate program at ISC was a fairly new program, and the program at IIT Delhi has been uh, there for a while. And I think being at IIT Delhi at least like opens up lots of different doors. Like despite being in a certain department or pursuing a certain major, you can still take up so many electives, do many projects in different departments, and it really helps you explore um, across fields within engineering, or also lots of uh, students from IIT Delhi go on to do finance or consulting. So I think it gives you a lot of flexibility and lets you explore.
Great. Amazing to hear that. Okay. So slightly different uh, question now. So Pratyusha, you were industrial production engineering student, and but right now there's a slight detour, and you are into computer science and artificial intelligence. And I feel that there are a lot of students who wish to pursue research, but aren't really clear about what they want to do. And in your case, I think you have tried a bunch of things, like your intern at Deutsche Bank, your job at Honda, and then you move to research, right? So there's a lot to learn from you. So I want to explore what was there in your mind, what was the thought process when you were at when you were trying to make those decisions as to where you should go next, and what was in your mind while you were doing those things, right? So start from the very beginning. Like in class 12, did you ever think that you would be doing something like robotics and ML and AI in future?
No, actually not at all. Like I did not know what I would be doing. Like I did not know I would be doing robotics in the future. Yes. I think it was just that I really,
Most of us, yeah, most of the students that come to IIT as well, they're very unsure in the very beginning. I mean, their branches are mostly forced on them because of their rank. So it is kind of tough, but okay. And when you were at IIT in your second year, you started working on research topics, and you started working under various professors who were from robotics field and similar fields. So how did that start? How did that begin?
yes. So when I was in my second year, one of my friend who was in electrical engineering and I wanted to work on something together, and we were thinking of what might be a good project to get started on, and we were looking at research happening in different fields, and we were really excited by the research on robotics, which was, I think, at the intersection of several fields, and we thought maybe it's a good project to get started on.
Yeah, and you then went on to work on those projects, and then you also interned at Waseda University, right, in
Yes,
Japan.
yes. So it was
How was the
actually,
experience there?
yeah. So like it was more of like, so the project I started working on in my second year, it was a collaboration project between Professor Saha and Professor Matsumaru at Waseda University. And as part of the collaboration, I think it was an opportunity to also visit the university and be able to work in the lab there. And it was a really fun experience. Like it was my first time being working in any research lab outside of India, and yeah, it was a very nice
And
experience.
that is where the seed was sown, right? That is where it all started.
Yes, maybe. Yes, I think
Yeah.
that's true. Yes.
And then in your third year, you interned at Deutsche Bank. This is very different from all those things that you were doing until now. So anything about that?
Yes. So I think that when I was in college, the way third year internships worked was that you had to sit for like company
Yeah.
interviews, and I don't know if it's still like that. So
No,
um,
it's still like that.
okay. So I think uh, and people just applied for all the companies that come, and then you sit on the first day, and then you have to make a decision, and only then you go to the second day. And I think to me, like the reason why I joined at Deutsche Bank was really to understand what the world of like finance or is really about. And like Deutsche Bank had an internship in the global markets division, and like speaking to some of the seniors from who interned in the previous years, the project sounded very exciting. And I think it was a really good experience in terms of like just understanding uh, what a completely different field that I'd never thought about before might really have. So yeah, I think it was a good
And
decision
and
of exploration. Yeah.
and was it still in your mind during that time that the research thing? I mean, was it still in your mind? Were you still enrolled in courses where you were learning those things?
Yes, I think I was always like I continued to work on many projects through my third year, and also I did BTP 1 and BTP 2 in my fourth year. It was on a slightly different project, but I think I always enjoyed research a lot more than I enjoyed other things. So, and
Yeah.
so yes, it was always on my mind. Like yes.
And then you also sat for placements, and you were placed at Honda Japan, and you worked there for a good 6 months. So what was the placement season like for you? I mean, how was it like getting placed to a company? How was it like working there as well?
Yes. So like when the in the seventh semester when I think placements happened. Like I wasn't sure if I should apply to a master's program or a PhD program, or if I should do a job. And I think with the placements, I kind of just went for it because I I just thought maybe it's a good idea to try to work for some time and see if I like it. And like especially this job at Honda was still going to be related to what I'd been working on, because like in the exams and interviews, the exams are about like things that we had learned across the last 3 years, and the interview was basically them asking questions about research. So I was really looking forward to this, and having worked in like having worked before in research lab in Japan, I was also really excited to go back to Japan and like be able to like learn from uh, maybe some of the best roboticists. Like Honda has Asimo, and yeah, so I was really, I think it was that that kind of helped me make the decision of taking up a job in Honda.
Yeah. And what did you decide to switch? What did you switch?
Yes. So so before moving to Honda, I had a offer to be a research assistant at CMU, and but I still wanted to give the job at Honda a shot. And I think working at Honda, while I definitely learned a lot, there was still like this lack of I would say maybe there's definitely differences in company and like being able to work in a research lab in school. Like you can choose your own problem, and there's more freedom. And I think it was really the freedom to choose that is one factor, and like the problem that you're working on. And the second factor was like a lot of Japanese companies have a very long training period, and like it only makes sense to continue to stay there if you plan to stay in for a very long time. Because if you spend say 1 year training, then like when and then you would when do you start working? So I think I got more and more sure that I wanted to do a PhD, like because I was really missing working in a research lab.
And like even if it was for a short duration, I mean, you are a good person to draw a parallel between research in a job and research as a full-time research student, right? So what is that? Those two experiences are different in many ways. So how do you compare them?
Yes, so uh, it was so like I mentioned. So in industry, I think it's really more about somebody giving you a problem that may directly impact, let's say, the different products that are part.
The customers, yeah, the
Yes,
customers and the product.
yes, but I think in a research job, you have more freedom to decide what you want to work on, and the problems that you work on may not really be uh, things that you would see in the market maybe immediately, but problems nonetheless that really interest you and might that you may want to like uh, ask more questions about or probe. So I think that is one big difference.
And also in jobs, uh, because you're working for a company and there are a lot of people around you, there's a set bound metric where you can measure your success, right? Like if you're working on a product, the product is successful and people are buying it, people are trying it, and it's a successful research, right? And in research in general, like as a student, the results are not very instantly obtained, and uh, uh, a lot of times you don't know whether you're working in the right direction or not. So how do you decide that whether you're working on the right direction or not?
Yes. So actually, a lot of times you may not know, but but I think in
Yeah.
in general, I think as you work more in a particular field, you may develop like better insights or greater like maturity in the field about like what maybe like when you may be making a right decision versus wrong. But besides that, you have an advisor who will who tries to also like guide you. And I think I've been like I've been very lucky with I've had really good advisors who kind of helped me out every time I've been stuck, and been able to tell me that maybe this is not something you should be spending time on. But yes, you should also yeah. So I think it's a combination of both.
Great, great. Okay, next question. About research, right? So how different is it pursuing research full time and pursuing research as an intern? When there's a short duration, obviously, the duration is short in an intern, and in research you're doing it full time. So how can one gain most from their intern?
Yes, so I think that's a very good question. So um, I think one way of gaining, maybe like trying to uh, do well, like maybe in an internship, would be to have like a clearly defined problem, because you're there for a very short duration of time. And so given that short duration of time, if you have a lot of clarity in what you want to do, then you can, then it's really on you to implement things. And so I would say that the amount of time you have to really think about the problem you want to work on is going to be shortened, because you also want to be able to finish or like take your project to a good stage at the end of your internship. So maybe I think that would be one thing, like trying to pick a problem that maybe you can that uh, you have like you have core strengths in. Like you cannot pick something maybe that you've never done before, and a lot of time you just spend on reading. So I think it's a combination.
And it's always good to equip yourselves with the latest information in that field, and keep studying resources related to it, so that one is very updated with the noise or advancements in that field. So like resources, right? So what were your resources, or maybe the things that you did which actually increased the experience, or increased the interest more? like like intern was one thing where the experience was better and you developed yourself. So any other things that you did which helped you to develop that interest in research?
Yes. So I think there's maybe in I can talk about IIT Delhi, and in IIT Delhi there's lots of different opportunities. Like after second year, students can do a summer undergraduate research project like Sura, and there are lots of interesting courses that you can take up as electives, and a lot of them have project components, which can really expose you to like problems in the field, or at least get you started on reading more about that field. And I think besides that, there's reading-based classes that where people can just read research papers, and you and I think COQ, MEQ, there are all of these
Seminar courses,
seminar courses, yes. And there's also, I think IIT introduced a 1, 2, 3, 4 style research project. Where, so I think that's a really good initiative, because then there would be one student from each year, and like a senior
could be
student
helping the
yes,
juniors. And
yes. So I think all of these things, and I think competitions, hackathons, really it can help you just explore
develop your interest, right?
yes, yes.
Okay. uh, I assume that you must have applied to a lot of universities. So how was the application process like, and what one should take care when they are applying to a new institute, what they should keep in mind?
Yes. So I think applications is so maybe I could describe the process of applications. And I think when you apply to graduate school, you're required to submit some test scores. So when I applied, we had to submit a GRE score, a TOEFL score, and your statement of purpose, and also request professors or your supervisors in internships to like ask them if they could recommend you to or speak about the work that you've done with them. And so I think with these exams, I think GRE is now waived from few universities. Like some of the universities starting this year uh, have don't need a GRE score. But besides that, so I think it's nice to plan it out pretty well, because GRE takes at least 1 month to prepare nicely, because there's still some schools that will continue to take GREs. If you're applying to one of those, you have to still give the GRE. And I think after you prepare for the GRE, TOEFL can be fairly straightforward. And I think you should spend a lot of time writing your statement very nicely, like clearly outlining um, what you've done before and how it relates to what you want to do in the future. And I think
and having, as you mentioned before, having a good mentor, I think that also really helps. So how do you choose a good mentor? I mean, there are obviously, uh, you have to try with different mentors whether you like one or not. So how do you go about that?
yes, I think having a good mentor is very important, because like they're your first like window into research. Like the first professor that you work with, like it, a lot of students sometimes don't enjoy their experience and then decide to not continue to do research. But I think I was very lucky to have really good mentors, like both in terms of research advisors and also professors in the university. So, like, I think having a good mentor, like, goes without saying, it's very important, and um, they can
It's
really
important
like.
to have good ties with the mentor as
I'm sorry.
well. No, go on.
Okay. No, I actually couldn't hear that. So, yeah, I think it's really important, and like a lot of times, like when you're making decisions, your professors who've been through the same process have also made some of those decisions or similar decisions, and they can really guide you very nicely. And yes, I think it's and besides professors, I think even having maybe senior students who've gone through similar process, people you can trust uh, as mentors is, I think, very important.
Any final words of advice for students who wish to pursue research? Maybe they're just starting out. They may be in first year, second year, third year. So, what is your advice to them?
Yes, I think my advice to them would be that, like, I don't think you always need a very concrete plan of I will do X and then I will do Y and then I will do Z. But I think the goal should be more about like actively trying to find out what interests you the most and try to learn more about it. And in the case you like decide to apply to graduate schools, I think you should plan it a little in advance. Like try to see when you're when it might be the right time, um, and like discuss with your friends who are applying, so everybody can kind of inform each other about like the deadlines and the application procedure. Um, and yeah, so I think that's really the advice.
I think that's all about research that we better talk about. Uh, one last question. So you were also involved in extracurricular activities as well. Like you were the general secretary of ME Society, you were the vice captain of lawn tennis, and you were also a student mentor and a BSP journalist as well. So how was that experience like at IIT?
Yes, I think it was a really fun experience, and it is through like all of these clubs and like activities that I really made some friends who I'm still in touch with today. And I think these activities, more than anything, like they really help you like uh, clear your mind, and like it can also teach you how to manage time better, because if um, yeah, because you would not want to miss your like maybe a day of playing, but you would also want to like catch up on coursework, and it kind of helps you also stay fit, like if you're doing a physical exercise. So I think these activities really teach you a lot of things, including like leadership skills and I think working in a team. But yeah, I think they're very, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's all, Pratyusha. I hope that this interaction was uh, good for you, and I hope that it will be beneficial for the viewers as well. And Thanks a lot for being a part of OnAir with Alumni. We really enjoyed this.
And thank you so much. I had a lot of fun, and I really hope it helps students.
We'll be back very soon with another alumni on the series. So stay tuned.